Hello everybody, welcome to Totally Tabled. My name is Shaggy, and today I'm running down my top 10 most anticipated solo games for 2024. Now I've done this sort of list for the last 2 years. In fact, last year I did my top 20, and inevitably a bunch of the games that I thought would come out haven't come out yet and are now 2024 releases. So I'll just go ahead and mention those really quickly here up top because I'm not going to include them in this list. So Unconscious Mind, Pampero, Dark Quarter, Forsaken, and Purple Haze. Those were all on my list last year, and they are now considered 2024 releases. So obviously, I'm still anticipating those, but I'm not going to put them on my list again. I've literally just received my copy of Sleeping Gods Distant Skies. That was my number 1 from last year, but I haven't had a chance to get it to the table yet. I've also just received my copy of Harrow County and Primal. They literally just arrived in the mail like a couple of days ago. Primal, in fact, was from my list in 2022. And speaking of the 2022 list, Iridia was also on that list. It's now listed as a 2024 release. So there you go. That's all the games that aren't on the list. Let's talk about the games that are actually on the list, starting with my number 10. Daitoshi. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. In fact, I don't know much about this game. That's why it's at number 10. I know it's designed by Danny Garcia, who was also the designer of Barcelona and Arborea. Now, I haven't played either of those two games, but I've heard really great things about it. I'm excited to get them to the table. And this game just sounds extremely interesting from its description, which is all I have to go on. This description comes from the publisher, which is Devere, which has done some really great games. I really like their game Red Cathedral. But this one, it sounds downright kind of dystopian. It's like a little bit of a steampunk world where we're using steam power, and it sounds like we're basically trying to build some giant steam contraption that will expand our business. And we're going to be doing so by like sending out our workers to different places and cutting down trees and changing the flows of rivers and stuff. And it literally says in the description, quote, "It's not like the old creatures on those forests can do anything about it." Yeah, so this sounds like some really weird steampunk, dystopian, evil capitalist stuff. Okay, I'm interested. I don't even really know what mechanisms are at work here. Sounds like some worker placement, maybe like different types of workers, definitely some resource management. We'll see. Love the cover art and sounds like kind of a quirky theme, so I'm interested. That's my number 10. My number 9 is Keyside. This is either the 3rd, 4th, or 5th, or maybe even 6th game in the Keydom series. My favorite of the bunch is Keyflower, which is one of my favorite games of all time. Definitely in my top 50. Just a brilliant auction/worker placement. Really clever. And now completely out of the blue, had no idea this was coming. But what really gets me excited for it is that 1, there's a solo mode apparently. And 2, one of the credited designers, apart from Richard Breeze, is David Turtzi. He was obviously one of the co-designers of Voidfall, my favorite game of 2023, but also a ton of other games, including a ton of solo modes for games that aren't even his own design. He's really made a name for himself for that. From the description, it sounds a little bit like this is going to have some dice placement and worker placement. It says you're going to be using a die to move a boat into a harbor, and then you're going to use workers to take actions in that harbor. You'll be gaining resources, animals. You'll have access to farms, markets, and skill tiles. Be able to recruit workers. And then you're going to be scoring based on the number of workers you have in that harbor, as well as, some of the tiles and buildings in your own village. It's a little hard to visualize how this is all going to work, but hey, a solo Key series game, that gets me a little bit excited. And that's why it's my number 9. Number 8 is The Old King's Crown. At least 75% of my interest in this game is just from the artwork. The game looks absolutely stunning. And apparently the artist, Pablo Clark, is also the designer. But this looks like a game that doesn't normally have a robust solo mode. This looks like a lane battler, where you're going to be sort of playing cards face down to different regions, trying to control those regions, and it looks to be extremely asymmetrical. The story here is this is some kind of fantastical medieval setting where the players are vying for a vacant throne. So like with a lot of these games, it looks like there's going to be some kinds of bluffing going on. You know, a lot of different abilities that you're going to be able to activate and try to control the different regions to gain influence. I'm really fascinated to see how this is going to work as a solo game. This isn't usually my favorite type of game, which is why it's here at number 8, but it seems like it's going to have a fairly robust solo mode, so this is definitely one I'm excited to check out. That's The Old King's Crown. Number 7 is Wondrous Creatures. This looks like a pretty quick playing, maybe medium weight worker placement game. Again, with incredible artwork by Sophia Kang, and these really cool wooden meeples of various wondrous creatures, which I think are your workers. And it looks like there's this pretty cool worker placement system involving a kind of hex map. You're going to be deploying your workers to this map, and then you're going to be looking at the hexes surrounding your worker, and those are going to define like the resources that you can take and which cards you can draft. And it looks like your workers can sort of upgrade and get different special abilities. And you'll be playing out these cards, creating a kind of tableau with, again, different effects and different scoring opportunities. It appears as if this hex map is going to kind of change and grow throughout the game. And that all sounds really cool and puzzly without being too complicated or taking too long. And I just love this theme of, you know, creating a creature preserve. So you're trying to find all of these wondrous creatures to, you know, collect for your preserve. So there you go. That's number 7, Wondrous Creatures. Number 6 is Galactic Cruise. Now, I'm sure everyone is saying the same thing. This looks exactly like a Vital Lacerda, Ian O'Toole, Eagle Griffin Games collaboration. But it's actually only one of those things. The artwork is indeed done by Ian O'Toole. And here's the thing about Ian O'Toole. Not only do I love his artwork and graphic design, but I also tend to enjoy the games he works on. We clearly have very similar tastes, and he seems to just work on games that he enjoys playing. He's one of the few artists where seeing his name gives me confidence that I'll also enjoy the gameplay. That's what's happening here because I'm completely unfamiliar with these 3 designers. I'm also anticipating this one because the theme sounds just really cool. The players are basically running a luxury space cruise business. So you'll be using worker placement to build up shuttlecrafts, and then eventually you'll use workers to pilot those shuttles. And it seems like those pilots will be gone for a certain number of days, and while they're gone, you'll be, you know, collecting rewards from the passengers of those cruises. But then I'm guessing you won't have those workers for other actions. I'm speculating a little bit here because I don't know how it plays, but that sounds really fun. And this looks to be a Euro game on the medium heavy to heavy side, so hopefully it can capture some of that Lacerda magic. Anyway, that's my number 6, Galactic Cruise. My number 5 is Civolution. I absolutely hate the name of this game. And if it wasn't for the designer, Stefan Feld, I'd probably be way less excited just based on the name alone. But I'm a major Feld fan. I've mentioned this before, but I love Amerigo, Aquasphere. I loved Macau back when it was called Macau. So my Feld fandom is undisputable. One thing that really struck me about this game is that the theme is downright bonkers. I was expecting like a basic Civilization game. Nope. You're playing like a divine being who is a student taking your final exam in a civilization design course at a cosmic college. Okay, sure. I mean, look, this is a Feld game, so I doubt the theme will matter all that much. And this one looks a little bit heavier than his usual weight. I find his games to be much more sort of medium weight Euros. This one seems to be more on the heavy side, so that has me excited. Also, the central mechanism here is described as dice selection. And it looks like you use those dice to trigger actions on some sort of tech tree. All I know is Feld plus dice is always good. Castles of Burgundy, of course, immediately comes to mind, but also Macau and Bruges. And I also like the idea of having these unique cards that you're going to be putting into play, I think, to take actions, and that's going to really change up the strategy from game to game. I don't know, this all sounds fantastic to me, and I have really high hopes for this one. That's my number 5, Civolution. Number 4 is Stonesaga. Man, this one is giving me Sleeping Gods vibes, at least just from the cover. Those are good vibes, but this is a very different game. We have cooperative campaign gameplay with legacy elements. Now, for me, that isn't necessarily a good thing. I've cooled on campaigns, and I've always been cool on legacy games. But I just can't help it. The game's this high because some of these mechanisms have me completely intrigued. First off, it's a prehistoric survival crafting game, which sounds amazing. There's a quote in the description. It says, "A unique, persistent world shaped by your choices." Okay, love hearing that. Stonesaga also features generational storytelling, which I guess means that each session is like a story of one generation of your society. So with each new game, the world has been altered by your previous generation. Now on paper, that sounds really cool. It kind of reminds me a little bit of what Oath was trying to do. Seems difficult to pull off in a board game, but who knows? I also think this one's going to be pretty exploration heavy, which is one of my favorite things to do in games. And the crafting and building system here sounds really unique. I think you're going to need to discover the recipes on how to make things rather than just sort of having them and having to collect the resources. Not sure exactly how that works, but I definitely welcome a new take on crafting in board games. I think that's long overdue. I have Stonesaga here at number 4 because of my wariness to engage in another campaign game, but this one has the potential to be the next big thing, if they can make good on some of these promises. That's number 4, Stonesaga. Number 3 is Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, episodes 3 and 4. Okay, here's the thing. I completely missed out on the first 2 games of this series. Episodes 1 and 2 were also packaged together on a crowdfunding campaign, and I remember hearing about it, and then it just slipped through the cracks somehow. I just never saw a playthrough or heard a review or anything. So I have no knowledge of these games, except that they are heavy Euro games with dice drafting and dice placement of some sort. And that's a mechanism I really love, so, you'd think I'd be all over this. I'm not sure what happened. Maybe it was just the thought of 2 heavy Mind Clash games at once. It, was just too overwhelming for me. I don't know. But anyway, fast forward a bit, Voidfall comes out, and suddenly I am much more interested in what David Turtsey and Mind Clash are cooking up. So if you don't know what this is, Perseverance is a series of 4 standalone games that have different but interconnected mechanisms that tell a story of a group of survivals on a hostile planet with dinosaurs. So I guess episode 1 is about, protecting your town against attacks from the dinosaurs. And then episode 2, the town is now safe, you've succeeded, and so now you can sort of set out and explore the wilderness and expand your village. Now I guess in episode 3, you have, this bustling city, and you're now taming and riding dinosaurs. Yes, please. This one appears to have, more tableau and engine building in it. And then in episode 4, it said you're facing off against the Ancients, a mysterious race that once ruled the island. And then there's also something about, being able to return back to your homeland through a dimensional storm. Episode 4 is giving me these Anachrony vibes. I don't know. It sounds really fun. I'm a little bit murky on all the sort of exactly how these mechanisms work, but I'm interested in checking out all 4 episodes. I think episode 3 is the one that excites me the most. I don't know. I'm excited to dig into these. That's why they're my number 3, Perseverance, Castaway Chronicles, episodes 3 and 4. Number 2 is Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era. I'm a pretty big fan of the Elder Scrolls video games. I've played Oblivion and Skyrim. Now look, I'm not going to tell you I'm some sort of expert on the lore or anything, but I did play Skyrim for like 4 days straight while traveling across the United States on a train. So yeah, this world has a ton of nostalgia for me. Now it appears like they're pairing that world with gameplay that is heavily inspired by Too Many Bones, and that strikes me as a really great match. I've only played Too Many Bones a little bit. Honestly, the theme and the characters just didn't really grab me at first. Placing that system in the Elder Scrolls IP will definitely help to get me invested. Now, in terms of gameplay, this is a cooperative game for 1 to 4 players. It will have a mini campaign structure. So a single adventure will consist of 3 sessions, and each session will be about an hour per player. For solo, that's going to be ideal. I mean, a 3-hour scenario can do that in one sitting. There's also this hex map that you'll be exploring, diving into dungeons, building up your character and engaging in combat. They say you're going to be getting experience quickly, so you're going to be able to level up and change your character in a really quick amount of time, right? There's really not going to be a whole lot of grinding. That sounds fantastic. And Chip Theory Games is going to overproduce this in the best possible way, right? With all their cool poker chips and custom dice and those stitched neoprene mats. I think this has a good chance to be the top game of 2024. But it's only my number 2. And that's because my number 1 is Inventions, Evolution of Ideas. I was talking before about the combo of Vital Lacerda, Ian O'Toole, and Eagle Griffin Games. Here we have the genuine thing. A brand new Lacerda game will always be on top of my anticipated list. That's just how it works, folks. It was true in 2022 when Weather Machine received the number 1 spot, and that game was a home run. I know some people expressed some disappointment with Weather Machine. I just don't see it. I love Weather Machine, especially solo. I love every big box game from Vital Lacerda. And Inventions looks like another brain-burnery heavy Euro with a fun theme. This seems to be like a Civilization game, but like just focused on tech, right, and inventions. From the limited amount of info that I've seen, there appears to be worker placement of some sort going on, maybe using different types of workers with different skills. There's some interesting card play. It's actually reminding me a bit of Carnegie, at least with its central board, where there's this map area where I think there could be maybe some majority scoring going on. There's lots of various different tracks. But the thing that has me the most excited are the personal player boards, which have this hex tile laying area. I'm really curious to see how that works and fits together with the other mechanisms. We know the game is going to have that sort of clockwork interconnectedness, which is, Vital Lacerda's calling card. I feel guilty for making my number 1 so obvious, but, I'm not going to lie to you folks. This is the game I am most excited about for 2024. That's Inventions, Evolution of Ideas. So there you go, the 10 games I am most anticipating for 2024. There's a bunch more that I'm also excited about. I could have easily made a top 20, top 30. I think 2024 is shaping up to be an amazing year. But what do you folks think? What games are you excited for? Please let me know in the comment section. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.